Welcome to the deep dive. If you're listening to this right now, you are what we like to call the learner.
Right. You're someone who wants to know how the digital world actually runs behind the curtain.
Exactly. Whether you're, prepping for a big infrastructure meeting, or maybe you're just intensely curious about the hidden systems that power our economy.
The invisible pipes, basically.
Yeah, the invisible pipes.
Yeah.
So, to start us off, I want you to think about how easy it is to send a file right now. You pull out your phone, you tap a photo, hit share,
But
and
in a fraction of a second is halfway across the world.
right. It is completely frictionless.
Mm.
But now I want you to imagine you're a massive global company, a bank, a healthcare provider, a global manufacturer. Every single time your company sends a file, your monthly bill balloons,
Oh, yeah.
and your security team breaks out in an absolute cold sweat.
It's a totally different reality. I mean,
Right.
we are so used to the consumer experience being seamless that we naturally just sort of assume the enterprise experience is a bigger, more robust version of that same frictionless process.
But it's not.
No, it's really not. Behind the scenes, the way massive organizations move sensitive data around is incredibly fragile. And surprisingly, it's often wildly expensive.
And that fragility is exactly what we are getting into today. We're looking at a really comprehensive document we got our hands on. It's called the Thorn Technologies Cloud Migration Guide.
It's a fascinating read.
It really is. And the mission of this deep dive is to figure out exactly why the traditional way that companies move data around is fundamentally broken. But more importantly, we're going to look at the mechanics of how smart organizations are radically shifting their approach.
Right, to drastically reduce costs and actually regain control of their own information.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, this topic is crucial because what this guide reveals is a massive security illusion in the modern tech landscape.
A security illusion.
Yeah, for the last decade or so, enterprise IT has been sold a very specific story about the convenience of outsourcing everything to third parties.
Right, the whole put it in the cloud and forget about it pitch.
Exactly. But the reality of what that convenience is actually costing businesses, both in hard dollars and, frankly, hidden risks, is pretty staggering once you look at the actual mechanics.
We really need to diagnose the disease here before we can talk about the cure, I think. Like, why are companies suddenly panicking about file transfers? Moving files isn't exactly a new concept, right? We've been doing it since the dawn of the internet.
True, but according to the source material, there's a specific financial trap that companies are falling into right now.
Yes, there's a story in here about a fintech company, just a regular financial technology firm, that received a renewal notice from a traditional SaaS provider, software as a service.
The vendor was called Files.com, right?
Yeah, files.com. And over the course of 2 years, this fintech company's monthly bill had absolutely skyrocketed. And here's the kicker.
It wasn't because of new features.
No, it wasn't because they were using fancy new features or moving a vastly different type of data. It was simply because their internal team had grown.
Wow. And that right there exposes the fundamental flaw of the traditional SaaS model when it comes to basic infrastructure like file transfers.
Yeah.
It's what we can call the per-user prison.
Per-user prison. That's a great term.
I mean, think about how a healthy business is supposed to work.
Yeah.
Your goal is to grow. You want to hire more people, bring on more contractors, collaborate with external partners.
Expand your operations.
Exactly. But with these legacy SaaS vendors, the pricing model inherently penalizes you for that exact growth.
It's essentially a tax on hiring.
That's exactly what it is. Every single new hire that needs access to a file, that's another monthly license fee. You need to bring in an outside accounting firm for a 2-week audit. That is another recurring charge added to your invoice just to give them a login.
And it doesn't matter how much they use it, right?
Nope. It doesn't matter if that user transfers one small spreadsheet a month or 100 gigabytes of video. You're paying a premium just for their existence in the system.
It's like renting an apartment, and you sign the lease, everything seems totally fine. But then, the landlord decides to charge you an extra monthly fee for every single guest you invite over for dinner.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Right. Like, you have a few friends over on a Friday night, and suddenly your rent goes up for the month. It scales completely against your life, not with it.
Yeah, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, companies are effectively being punished for scaling up. They just get trapped in these incredibly rigid pricing tiers.
The guide actually highlights another scenario with a global manufacturer.
Oh, the 500 users one.
Yes. They needed a system to support over 500 users across their worldwide network. And these weren't 500 power users doing heavy data lifting every day.
Just normal employees.
Right, just 500 employees who occasionally needed to securely send or receive a file.
And the quote they received from a traditional vendor to support those 500 people was described in the text as laughable.
Laughable. It was astronomically high. The text says they couldn't even take the meeting seriously because the vendor was treating 500 simple user accounts like 500 enterprise software installations.
Because the traditional SaaS model was never actually built to accommodate seamless, invisible scale.
No.
It was built to lock an organization into a recurring revenue stream that just grows heavier and heavier the more deeply ingrained it becomes in your daily operations.
But it's not just about the money. Financial pain is one thing, and a ballooning IT budget will definitely get a CFO's attention.
For sure.
But let's transition from this financial pain to something that I think is actually way scarier for a company's survival.
The hidden risks.
Exactly. The potentially disastrous risks of this traditional model.
Which brings us back to that security illusion I mentioned earlier. The core issue here is data sovereignty.
Sovereignty meaning who actually possesses and controls the digital asset.
Precisely. When you use a traditional SaaS file transfer service, your highly sensitive data is sitting on someone else's servers, period. And when your data physically resides on someone else's infrastructure, you fundamentally lose control of the environment surrounding it.
Wait, okay, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Sure, go ahead.
Because if you're a mid-sized company, isn't it the SaaS provider's entire job to handle security? I mean, they're the ones with massive teams of security engineers dedicated to protecting those servers.
That's the common argument, yeah.
Right, so why is it safer to take that responsibility away from them? Isn't it generally better to let the so-called experts handle the infrastructure?
See, that is the exact assumption that creates the illusion. It sounds perfectly logical until you understand how SaaS infrastructure actually operates under the hood.
Okay, how so?
Outsourcing the software interface shouldn't mean outsourcing the sovereignty of your data. Think about it this way. When your sensitive files sit on a third-party server, you are usually in what's called a multi-tenant environment.
Meaning you're sharing the space.
Exactly. Your data is sitting on the same physical hard drives as hundreds of other companies. Yeah. So their vulnerabilities automatically become your vulnerabilities. You cannot completely guarantee compliance because you don't own the underlying operating system.
Yeah, makes sense.
You cannot prevent vendor breaches. And when regulatory auditors come knocking, you cannot confidently satisfy them because you're essentially handing them a black box and saying, well, the vendor promised us it's safe in their terms of service.
And the guide gives a really illuminating and frankly kind of terrifying example of this playing out in the real world.
The healthcare startup.
Yes. There's a healthcare startup mentioned in the text. They spent 6 entire months and a fortune in external consulting fees just trying to achieve HIPAA compliance with their SaaS provider.
And for anyone who might not know, HIPAA is the strict federal law protecting sensitive patient health information in the U.S.
Right. Very strict. So 6 months of back and forth, endless red tape. And they kept failing to meet the regulatory standards.
Why? Because the data wasn't truly under their control.
Exactly.
An auditor for HIPAA doesn't just want to know that you have a secure password on your account. They want to see the system architecture.
They want to look under the hood.
Right. They want to know exactly where the data physically rests, who holds the encryption keys, and they want absolute proof of the audit trails.
And you can't give them that with a standard SaaS platform.
No. When you're trying to bend a generic third-party SaaS platform to fit those rigorous, highly specific compliance needs, you are fighting a losing battle. The vendor isn't going to fundamentally change their server architecture just for you.
And the friction doesn't even stop at security and compliance. There's also the integration nightmare.
Oh, absolutely. This is where the technical mechanics really start to break down.
Because the source material talks about a Fortune 500 company that thought they were buying a simple file transfer solution, but when they actually tried to plug it into their existing internal systems, specifically, they were using SAP.
Right, SAP, which is this massive enterprise resource planning software. It basically acts as the central nervous system for huge corporations.
Yeah, so they tried to plug this simple tool into SAP, and they hit a brick wall. They found out they needed to buy incredibly expensive middleware just to make the SaaS tool talk to their SAP system.
Let's quickly define what middleware actually is in this context for the learner.
Yeah, please do.
Middleware is essentially digital plumbing. It's a secondary piece of software whose only job is to sit between two other incompatible pieces of software and translate the data passing between them.
Okay.
And traditional vendors often gatekeep the functionality you actually need to avoid using middleware.
Oh, so they do it on purpose.
Often, yes. You want API access to automate your workflows. You want your internal systems to programmatically talk to the file transfer tool.
That'll cost you.
Exactly. That's going to require you to bump up to their premium enterprise-level pricing tier.
Unbelievable. So not only are you paying a tax for every employee who uses it, but you're also paying an exorbitant toll charge just to get basic interoperability with the tools you already own.
That's the reality of it.
They have your data, they charge you for your employees, and they charge a fee every time you want your data to talk to your own internal systems.
Exactly.
So the theory makes sense. The traditional SaaS model is failing on finances, security, and integration. But how do we actually get out of this? Because the Thorn Technologies guide introduces this massive paradigm shift to solve the problem.
It is a fundamental shift in architecture. The revolutionary approach they outline is actually incredibly simple in its philosophy.
What is it?
You run the software in your cloud account, on your infrastructure, by your rules.
Okay, hold on. It'll stop you right there, because I'm putting myself in the shoes of an IT director right now.
Okay, play devil's advocate.
If I bring this back into my own cloud environment, didn't I just inherit a massive IT maintenance headache? I mean, I thought the whole point of moving to SaaS over the last 10 years was so that I don't have to manage servers anymore. Aren't we just trading a billing problem for a server maintenance problem?
That is the most common and honestly most important question. And the answer requires understanding the difference between the old way of doing things like on-premise servers and the modern way, which is private cloud deployment.
Okay, break that down.
We are not talking about buying a physical metal server, putting it in a supply closet, and having an IT guy wire it up.
Right, no dusty server rooms.
Exactly. We are talking about managed cloud infrastructure, like AWS or Microsoft Azure. When you run this software in your own cloud, you are deploying a pre-packaged, pre-configured machine image directly into the AWS or Azure environment you already own.
Ah.
The cloud provider handles the physical hardware and the uptime. You just control the software layer.
Oh, I see. So instead of buying space in someone else's storage unit where they control the hours, they hold the master key and they charge you every time you visit.
Right.
You are just buying a better lock mechanism to put on your own warehouse. It's your building. It's your property. You're just upgrading the security system.
That is a perfect analogy. You are taking the exact functionality of enterprise file transfer and bringing it entirely inside your own secure perimeter.
That makes total sense.
Let's look at the contrast, the traditional approach. Your data is on their servers, subject to their rules, and their shared tenancy security problems become your problems.
Right.
The new approach, the software runs inside your cloud on your infrastructure, following your strict security rules.
And the impact of that shift is immediate. Let's go back to that healthcare startup we just talked about.
The HIPAA one.
Yes, the one that burned 6 months and a ton of cash failing to get HIPAA compliance with a SaaS vendor. The guide notes that by switching to this private cloud approach, putting the transfer software in their own AWS environment, they achieved full HIPAA compliant in just 24 hours.
24 hours versus 6 months. That is the sheer power of having direct, unmitigated control over your environment.
It was night and day.
Truly. When an auditor sits down across from you now and asks about data residency, like, where exactly does this sensitive patient data physically live?
You don't just point to a vendor's terms of service.
No. You literally just open up your own AWS console and show them it's right here.
Yeah.
In our dedicated storage bucket, encrypted with our own keys.
The visibility is absolute. And because you are using your own underlying cloud storage, there are no unpredictable costs, right? You aren't paying a middleman a massive markup to store your files.
Exactly.
You pay the raw wholesale cost of cloud storage directly to Amazon or Microsoft.
What's really fascinating here is how this exposes what most legacy file transfer tools actually are.
What do you mean?
Most of them are just storage platforms that are pretending to be transfer tools.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they actually want your data to sit there indefinitely so they can charge you premium rates for the storage space.
So it's a trap.
Basically. But real control means utilizing software that is built strictly for transfer speed and scale. It should act as a conduit, moving data securely into your permanent storage, not trapping it in a third-party silo.
Built for transfer, not just storage. Okay, so conceptually, cutting out the middleman makes total sense. But execution is where companies usually stumble.
Always.
How does an organization actually do this without grinding their daily operations to a halt? We need to get into the technical mechanics here.
Sure.
What are the actual tools for the job? Because the guide outlines two very specific solutions that Thorn Technologies developed to execute this exact architecture.
Yes. To actually pull off this your cloud, your rules architecture, without a massive headache,
Yeah.
you have to solve two distinct bottlenecks in modern enterprise workflows.
Okay.
And they solve this with two core products, SFTP Gateway and StorageLink. Let's start with SFTP Gateway.
All right.
This tool is specifically designed for system-to-system automation, machine talking to machine.
Right. And the problem it solves is fascinating because it's a huge hidden IT headache across the entire global banking and manufacturing sector.
Massive headache.
You have these massive legacy systems, older infrastructure that has been running reliably for decades. But they only know how to communicate using an older protocol called SFTP, which stands for Secure File Transfer Protocol.
Right.
It's secure, but it's basically the language of 1990s mainframes. Meanwhile, the modern cloud, the new analytics tools, and storage lakes you're trying to move to speaks a totally different language. It speaks APIs.
Exactly. You have a hard language barrier between the old world and the new world.
Yeah.
Normally, fixing that barrier requires a massive multi-million-dollar IT project to rewrite all the foundational code in those legacy systems so they can speak API.
Which nobody wants to do.
Nobody. But SFTP Gateway acts as a universal translator.
Explain how that translation actually works, though, because it sounds a bit like magic.
Think of it this way. Imagine your massive legacy SAP system is an old-school fax machine,
Okay.
and your modern cloud analytics tool is a smartphone that only receives emails.
I'm with you.
SFTP Gateway acts like a smart scanner sitting right in the middle.
Oh.
The legacy fax machine dials the number and sends the document exactly the way it always has. It doesn't
Right.
know anything has changed.
Right.
But the gateway intercepts that fax, digitizes it instantly, and drops it into the cloud as an email attachment. Or, in this case, an API payload.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the old system is none the wiser, and the new system gets exactly what it needs. You bridge the old and the new without touching a single line of your existing legacy code.
That is brilliant. And the use cases for this are huge. The source material mentions banks using this specific translation tool to completely replace incredibly expensive legacy-managed file transfer systems.
Yes.
Analytics firms are using it to ingest data from hundreds of different old-school sources simultaneously, and enterprises are using it to finally connect their SAP systems directly to the cloud without having to buy that ridiculous middleware we talked about earlier.
That covers the automated machine-to-machine side, but what about the human element?
Right, actual people.
Exactly. That is where the second tool, StorageLink, comes in. StorageLink is built for human-to-human sharing.
This one is incredibly relatable for anyone who has ever worked in an office.
Oh, yeah.
The core problem is this. Your everyday users, your employees, they just want the frictionless simplicity of something like Dropbox or Google Drive.
They don't want to learn a new complex system.
No. They want to open a web browser, drag and drop a file, and be done with it. But your security team is standing there with their hair on fire saying, absolutely not.
Right. We need enterprise-level control. We need strict audit logs.
And we absolutely cannot have proprietary company data floating around on consumer-grade web portals.
StorageLink threads that needle perfectly.
Yeah.
It provides a highly modern, user-friendly web interface that looks and feels exactly like the simple drag-and-drop tools employees are used to.
Okay.
But, and this is the critical mechanical difference, that web interface is deployed and running entirely inside your own cloud infrastructure.
So the employees get the simple web portal they want, and the security team gets to sleep at night because the data never actually leaves their perimeter.
Exactly.
The guide mentions professional services firms using this to deliver sensitive client reports, and healthcare organizations using it to securely share patient data directly into their own AWS buckets.
But you might wonder just how powerful this raw direct-to-cloud approach is when you really push it to its limits.
Oh, we absolutely have to talk about the scale here because there is a case study in the text that is mind-blowing.
Really is.
The guide highlights a Fortune 500 financial services company that adopted this architecture. They used it to move 2 petabytes of data.
2 petabytes.
Now, for context, 1 petabyte is roughly equivalent to 20 million tall filing cabinets filled with text.
Wow.
They moved 2 of those in just 48 hours.
Let's look at the mechanics of why that's even possible. When you use a SaaS vendor, your data has to travel through their external servers, which are heavily throttled because they are balancing traffic from thousands of other customers.
They're bottlenecking you.
Exactly. When you use the Thorn Technologies approach, Your data is traveling through the raw, unthrottled pipes of AWS or Azure directly into your own storage.
You're just using the pure cloud.
Right. You are utilizing the full backbone of the internet. That's how you move 2 petabytes in a weekend. Try asking a traditional SaaS provider to do that without bankrupting you.
It simply wouldn't happen.
Not a chance.
So if an IT director or a systems architect is listening to this right now, how do they know which architecture they actually need? SFTP Gateway or StorageLink?
It breaks down very simply based on who or what is initiating the transfer.
Okay.
If you have a server that needs to securely talk to another server, or maybe an automated script running nightly data batches, that is SFTP Gateway.
Makes sense.
If you have a human being sitting at a desk needing to click upload on a web browser to send a file to an external client, that is StorageLink.
Got it.
And for large, complex organizations, they almost always need both working in tandem to cover their entire infrastructure.
So what does this all mean for you? We started this deep dive looking at the hidden friction and costs of moving data in the enterprise space.
Right.
What this guide makes incredibly clear is that taking control of your data transfers is no longer just a routine IT upgrade. It is a massive competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
It is how you stop bleeding money on ridiculous per-user fees that tax your company's growth. And it's how you stop risking your company's reputation by leaving your most sensitive information sitting on shared third-party servers.
Exactly. It's about evolving from a model where you are constantly renting someone else's compromise to a model where you finally own your own capability.
If you are dealing with this exact friction in your own IT department, the authors of this guide, Thorn Technologies, actually provide a really clear roadmap for making this migration.
Yeah, they do.
You don't just have to take their word for it either. As research, they highly recommend testing this architecture in a sandbox environment first.
Always a good idea.
They offer a 30-day trial for both tools that you can spin up directly inside your own AWS or Azure instance, just to prove the internal mechanics work before you commit to overhauling your systems.
Right.
You can find their contact info and set up that sandbox by reaching out to sales@thorntech.com or asking them for expert guidance on mapping out a migration from your specific legacy setup.
We have spent this time looking at how third-party file transfer tools trap companies in a per-user prison and create a dangerous security illusion.
We really have.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a broader thought to mull over regarding your own infrastructure.
All right, let's hear it.
If something as fundamental and routine as moving a digital file has been quietly outsourced to third-party servers at such a massive hidden cost to security and budget,
Yeah.
what other convenient everyday business software is quietly holding your organization's digital foundation hostage right now?
Oh, wow. That is a chilling thought, but an absolutely necessary question for any growing company to ask. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Next time you hit send on a file, just remember, it might be frictionless for you, but the infrastructure behind it matters more than ever. Take care, and we will catch you on the next one.